As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the small kitchen, James sat at the table, a plate of food before him. He was a man who had recently crossed the threshold into his 50s, a time when health became a focal point of his life. The wrinkles on his forehead told stories of laughter, worry, and the passage of time, but now they were furrowed with concern for his health, particularly for his prostate. His doctor had mentioned the importance of diet in maintaining prostate health, and James was determined to make changes. He had read articles and watched videos about the foods that could either harm or help this vital part of his anatomy. As he reflected on his meals, he began to mentally list the foods that he needed to avoid. First on his list was red meat. James had always enjoyed a good steak, but he recalled the conversations he had overheard at the barber shop, where older men shared their health woes. The consensus seemed to be that red meat, particularly processed varieties like sausages and bacon, could lead to inflammation and worsen prostate issues. He remembered the last barbecue he attended, where he had indulged in a juicy burger, blissfully unaware of the potential consequences. Now he envisioned the saturated fats and chemicals that could be lurking in those delicious cuts. It was time to reconsider his relationship with red meat, to perhaps save it for special occasions, rather than make it a staple of his diet. Next came dairy products. James had always enjoyed a cold glass of milk with his cookies or a rich slice of cheesecake after dinner. But recent studies had suggested that high-fat dairy could increase the risk of prostate cancer. He thought of the creamy sauces and cheesy pastas he had savored over the years. The thought of giving up his beloved cheese felt like a betrayal to his taste buds. Yet, he couldn't ignore the warnings. He imagined a future where he would be forced to deal with health complications, and that vision was enough to make him reconsider his dairy consumption. Perhaps he could explore alternatives like almond or oat milk to satisfy his cravings without putting his health at risk. Then there was the matter of fried foods. James had always been a fan of crispy French fries and golden brown fried chicken. They were comfort foods, the kind that reminded him of family gatherings and carefree days. But as he learned more about the effects of fried foods on the prostate, he began to feel a sense of dread. The oils used in frying could lead to inflammation and weight gain, both of which were detrimental to prostate health. He recalled the last time he had indulged in a bucket of fried chicken, feeling guilty afterwards. It was time to swap out those crispy delights for baked or grilled options. He envisioned a plate of roasted vegetables, vibrant and colorful, replacing the greasy fried foods that had once brought him joy. Next on his mental list was refined carbohydrates. James had a soft spot for pastries, white bread, and sugary snacks. They were easy to grab and satisfying in the moment, but he had begun to realize that these foods could spike insulin levels and contribute to obesity, a risk factor for prostate problems. He thought about the last time he had visited the bakery, the smell of fresh bread wafting through the air, beckoning him to indulge. But now, he felt a sense of resolve. He could replace those refined carbohydrates with whole grains, like quinoa and brown rice. The idea of a hearty grain bowl filled with vegetables and lean protein began to appeal to him more than the sugary treats of his past. As he continued to ponder his dietary choices, he couldn't ignore the impact of alcohol. James had always enjoyed a good glass of red wine with dinner or a cold beer while watching the game. However, he had read that excessive alcohol consumption could lead to prostate enlargement and other complications. He thought about the nights spent with friends, laughing and sharing stories over drinks. The camaraderie was undeniable, but he knew he had to find a balance. Perhaps he could limit his alcohol intake to special occasions, opting for sparkling water or herbal tea during the week. The idea of waking up clear-headed and energized instead of groggy and sluggish began to sound appealing. Another food that weighed heavily on his mind was soy. While he had often heard that soy products could be beneficial due to their plant-based protein, he also learned that excessive consumption might lead to hormonal imbalances, particularly in men. James recalled the time he had tried tofu stir-fry, convinced that it was a healthy choice. Now, he contemplated the possibility of moderation. He could still enjoy soy in small amounts, perhaps in the form of edamame or a sprinkle of soy sauce. But he needed to be cautious about overindulging. The thought of finding a balance between enjoying his meals and protecting his health felt empowering. Finally, he thought about sugary foods. The sweet treats that had once been a staple in his diet now loomed large as potential threats to his prostate health. Cookies, cakes, and candy had always been his guilty pleasures, but he had come to realize that excessive sugar could lead to obesity and inflammation. James imagined a future where he would replace those sugary snacks with fresh fruit. The vibrant colors and natural sweetness of berries, apples, and oranges seemed like a much better option. He could enjoy the satisfaction of a sweet treat without compromising his health. As he sat at the table, James felt a shift within himself. The foods that had once brought him comfort and joy were now viewed through a different lens. He understood that his choices mattered, not just for his prostate health, but for his overall well-being. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. He knew there would be temptations and moments of weakness, but he also felt a sense of determination to embrace this new chapter of his life with a healthier perspective on food. With a newfound resolve, James began to plan his meals for the week. He envisioned colorful salads, brimming with fresh vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. He imagined experimenting with herbs and spices to create flavorful dishes that would satisfy his cravings without resorting to unhealthy ingredients. He felt a sense of excitement at the prospect of exploring new recipes and discovering healthier alternatives to his favorite foods. As he cleared his plate, James took a deep breath, feeling lighter not just in body but in spirit. He knew that this journey was about more than just avoiding certain foods. It was about embracing a lifestyle that honored his health and well-being. He envisioned a future where he could enjoy meals with family and friends, sharing laughter and stories while nourishing his body with wholesome ingredients. With each passing day, James committed to making better choices. He found joy in cooking, experimenting with fresh produce and discovering new flavors. He felt invigorated by the energy that came from nourishing his body with the right foods. The journey was not without its challenges, but he approached each hurdle with a sense of purpose and determination. As the weeks turned into months, James noticed changes in himself. He felt more energetic, his mood improved, and he found himself engaging in activities he had once set aside. He took up walking in the evenings, enjoying the fresh air and the simple pleasure of movement. He discovered a community of like-minded individuals who shared his passion for health and wellness, and together they supported each other on their journeys. In time, James realized that his relationship with food had transformed. It was no longer just about indulgence. It was about nourishment, balance, and self-care. He felt empowered by the knowledge he had gained, and he took pride in the choices he made each day. The foods that had once posed a threat to his health became opportunities for creativity and exploration. As he sat down to a meal one evening, surrounded by friends who admired his journey, James felt a sense of gratitude. He had taken control of his health, embracing a lifestyle that honored his body and spirit. The journey was ongoing, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that the choices he made today could shape a healthier tomorrow. In that moment, he understood that it wasn't just about avoiding harmful foods, it was about celebrating the vibrant, nourishing options that life had to offer.